I feel my legs getting very heavy, my heart rate moving faster and faster, and my pedals moving slower and slower. I start entertaining thoughts of getting off my bike and walking it up the hill because I perceived the struggle to be too great. Pain, sweat, and a bit of tears, wondering if wait a minute, not I mean we could get up this hill. That's right, this wasn't about me, this was about us. Keep going, Aaron, I softly hear from her as the crowd cheers for her and for us to get up that hill. I become fixated on the present moment, the task at hand. Pulling my friend Katie, an athlete afflicted with cerebral palsy, up the biggest hill in Iron Man, Wisconsin, 140.6 miles of swimming, biking, and running. And I got focused, and I stopped worrying about this lack of balance, this fear, this fatigue, and I embraced it. And I stood up out of that saddle with strength, courage, and grit, pushing down, left, right, using momentum to keep escalating ourselves to the top, feeling like my heart was going to beat outside its chest. And guess what happened when we got to the top? I didn't die. But not only that, I broke through my limits, found my true potential, and strengthened my beliefs. Now, all of those things happened because I did what was hard but necessary for me to grow in life. I practiced and I trained, something that required what I believe all of us hold extremely valuable, a resource that often fuels our excuses and we often subconsciously waste, and that is time. It took a lot of time practicing and training, not so that we could just get through this event, but also create an amazing experience, one that we could take with us for the rest of our lives. And I remember amidst the training for this event, I had this really big training day where I just done like a 100-mile bike ride and followed up by a 7-mile run. They call that a brick workout. And I had a lot of things going on in life. Life was very busy. You ever been there before? Busy life, right? Somebody told me, you need more balance in life. I don't know why, but that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I was like, balance? Do I really need balance? I've tried achieving this sense of balance throughout my life, but I never actually got there, I felt like. And what I thought was, if I would have tried to have this state of balance right here, right now, I would have not lived up to what I knew I was capable of doing, my potential. And I would have allowed those excuses, the subtle manifestations of fear, to begin permeating my life. So I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way to think about this. So I looked back to the first encounter that I could recall seeking balance, and it just so happened to be learning how to ride a bike. And I recall trying to ride a bike, and I kept falling over, trying to keep this balance, and I kept falling over. I wanted to get to where I wanted to go, but I just couldn't stay upright and steady. And I was like, wait a second, there's got to be a better way to do this. So rather than focusing on balance, I focused on seeing where I wanted to go and then telling myself that I could get there. And the more that I focused on that and practiced that, voila, I found out that that's what got me to riding a bike. The more I focused on momentum moving forward, the less I focused on balance. See, here's the thing, balance was the result, not the application. Show of hands, how many of you have ever told yourself or had somebody tell you before, you need more balance in life? We talk about it all the time, don't we? Are you stressed out? You need more balance. No time to do what you want? You need more balance. Are you working too much? You need more work-life balance. If you were to tap into the all-knowing Google, you'd find a definition that states an even distribution of weight, empowering someone or something to remain upright and steady. But what if everything we know, think, and believe about balance actually holds us back from living up to our potential, having curiosity, having courage, getting connected, and finding love? So as I was on this quest for uncovering what balance meant in life, I found this really cool research done by Dr. Doug Lisle, who wrote The Pleasure Trap. And I found that we are hardwired to seek balance. And it stems on this idea called the motivational triad, where we seek pleasure, avoid pain, and take the path of least resistance. It's a safety mechanism that is already programmed within us. But just like, you've got your smart devices, you have to update those every once in a while. I think we need to update and upgrade our programming. Because the threats that we had in our primitive brain, when we didn't have as ready access to food, water, and safety, we now have a lot more of those things. So what happens is when we have a threat to our motivational triad, we become afraid. Now, there are two types of fear, rational and irrational. The rational fear is the fear of not actually having the necessities or the resources to achieve your fundamental needs. So, for example, if you have a threat to your safety, let's say there's a lion right there, you would likely want to get away from that lion. Some of you might want to fight, but I would want to run from that lion, right? That is a rational fear, okay? Now, there are irrational fears as well, based on our perspective, how you perceive a situation to be. Maybe it's a situation that is at your work, okay? Maybe it's a situation that you perceive to be challenging at home that's threatening your self-preservation. Maybe it's how you perceive yourself that's causing you to be afraid. And here's the thing, is that when you have fear, guess what usually follows? This stress response, okay? So it's supposed to be this immediate access to energy where cortisol gets dumped into the blood. You have increase in blood pressure, increase in vasodilation, increase in heart rate, so that if you have that lion right there, you can hightail it out there. It's a safety mechanism. But here's the thing, is that based on our perception, we are putting ourselves in this stressful state, and we were only supposed to be in this stressful state for just a little bit, all right? That's the neurobiology of it. But we're subconsciously putting ourselves in this state just based on how we perceive a situation. So I believe that we use balance as a means to reduce this fear and anxiety. And I think that we've crossed this threshold to having this fear epidemic where we're just afraid of a lot of things. How do we know this? Well, we can look to Gallup, which reports that 70% of Americans are disengaged or actively disengaged in their jobs. We can look to the National Institute of Stress, which reports that 4 out of every 5 Americans regularly experiences symptoms associated with stress, most common being fatigue, headaches, and stomach issues. You ever been there before? And then a third piece of information is the National Institute of Mental Health, which reports that 60% of things people are afraid of never happen. Never happen. 90% of things feared are considered insignificant, and 88% of things feared in conjunction with health will never take place. So there's a lot of perception, irrational fear occurring in our lives, and we use balance as a means to reduce that fear or anxiety. But just because we reduce that fear or anxiety, that stress, doesn't mean that we have connection, courage, hope, or love in our lives. So we might do a few different things. We try to reduce this stress and this anxiety. Maybe we do less. We consume more. We take the easy road. Maybe we go on vacation to get away from it all. We have an alcoholic beverage to numb it all. Or maybe we watch TV to just forget it all. Or maybe we watch a lot of TV. The Nielsen report conducted in 2016 suggests that Americans on average watch at least 5 hours of television per day, which I think is like crazy, because I don't watch that much, but somebody out there is making up for the difference, okay? 5 hours of television per day. There are 326 million Americans in this country. So you multiply that together, that's 1.63 billion hours of television consumed every single day. There's got to be a better way. So where can we look? We can look to different experiences in life. And we'll start off with Frederick Douglass, who once said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Maybe you've heard of Frederick Douglass before, an African-American, he was a slave in the 1800s who achieved his freedom through struggle, right? He experienced his own balance in life when he lost his mother at a very early age. He would give up his own rations on a hungry stomach just so somebody would teach him to learn and read. And as he continued to struggle but progress through his life, he made up this mindset of, if anybody lays hands on me, I'm going to match them blow for blow. And he developed this mindset, this strong mindset, this progressive mindset, to the point where he risked his very life for his freedom. So let's take a look at this quote in greater detail, because arguably, if we are struggling, we're going against the motivational triad. We're having a threat to our sense of security. So you could arguably suggest that struggle is unbalanced. And I think what Frederick Douglass is saying is that in order to move forward, we have to experience some uncomfortableness, some unbalance in life. But in that, if we continue to move forward, we will realize our potential and we'll be able to live a very meaningful life. So where else can we look to understand this idea about using struggle, using the unbalanced force to achieve a sense of momentum in life? Because Douglass by no means lived a balanced life, but that of an unbalanced life. Well, simple, we can look to physics, where Sir Isaac Newton once said, an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest. An object at rest stays at rest when you have two forces of equal magnitude pushing against each other. So let's take, for example, a book resting on a table. All right, you've got the force of gravity pushing down, and you've got the force of the table pushing up. But what if the potential lies in moving it from one side of the table to the other? What is it going to require? An unbalanced force. And note that this is the state of balance right here. It's stationary. This book is stationary. It's not moving. It's not progressing forward. Now, how many of you wake up every single day and you're like, oh man, I hope I have my worst day ever? Probably not, right? We desire to progress in our lives because progress can be pleasurable. But to progress, we need this, what's called unbalanced force. And this is what physics defines as the unbalanced force. It's like giving a little shove to this book here on the table. It moves it forward, but because of the resistance acted upon this book, it will eventually slow down and stop. So what do you need? You probably need a couple unbalanced forces to keep moving forward. And as you continue to have this unbalanced force and achieve this sense of momentum and finding what your potential is, you start creatively thinking and connecting ideas, concepts with people in different ways. Like, for example, getting to the top of that hill with Katie, I now had a new belief system. I now had a new perspective. I now understood my potential. And guess what? I had to do that hill twice because it was 2 loops. So guess what my new thinking was whenever we came up that hill again? I've got this. We've got this. We're going to do it. A very different conversation that I had with myself prior. So many don't know that Newton, he was born premature and not expected to live. And he developed this really extreme insecurities about himself when his mother left him with his paternal grandmother. And he carried this social awkward with him throughout his entire life and turned to confrontation whenever his ideas were challenged. He used philosophical teachings to elevate his ideas around science. See, Newton didn't live a life of balance, but that of unbalance. And so as we embrace this unbalance and use this momentum, we get to widen this gap and understand how perspective is really important in our lives. And to get a little philosophical on you, Plato once said, an unexamined life is not worth living. So we can use the art of self-examination to see where we're at and create a vision of where we want to go, not focusing on balance, but seeing where we want to go and then saying we can get there. So Karen Horne, a neuro-Freudian psychoanalyst who lived in the 1900s, had some really revolutionary ideas in the field of psychology and psychoanalytics. She developed concepts not limited to feminine psychology, adjustments to basic anxiety, and artificial harmony, which I believe artificial harmony is this desire for balance where we try to do less, consume more, and take the easy way out just to remove this sense of anxiety or stress or fear in our lives. So she writes in her book, Self-Analysis, that if a person has had sufficient courage to discover an unpleasant truth about himself, one may safely trust his courage to be strong enough to carry him through. See, embracing the unbalance, recognizing your potential, seeing where you want to go, taking the steps to get there is courageous. Now, Karen Horne experienced a lot of unbalance in her life where her father was very abusive to her. She experienced bouts of depression throughout her entire life, and even as a mother, contemplated suicide when she swam out into the middle of a lake and thought about drowning herself. But she also writes in her book that we get to use our perception to dictate where we fall in life, or the angle that we want to take in life, positive or negative. So take this number 7 on a continuum. Just by applying different variables, different perspectives, We get to decide where they fall on this continuum. But what happens so much in life, which I argue through the means of balance, is when we get negative, what we do is we try to remove the entire negative number to get to a state of balance, a state of zero. Let me replace this 0 here with a triangle. There you go. What does that look like? Yeah, looks like balance, right? But just because you don't have stress, fear, or anxiety in life doesn't mean that you have the capacity to learn, grow, and experience love and connect and do all these things. We need to use and embrace this unbalanced force momentum to realize our potential and keep moving forward to +7 and beyond. And then there's Steve Jobs, who used the art of creating these masterpieces. And I think that looking at masterpieces are fantastic, because when you look at a masterpiece, what you've done is you're looking at the intersection of the artist's perspectives all coming together at one time. And such is life. I mean, that's what life is about. It's using all of our perspectives in life to create this intersection, using this unbalanced force to realize our potential and keep moving forward. And that's what Jobs did when he created world-changing products not limited to the iPad, iPhone, and iPod. But Jobs experienced his own unbalance in life when he was adopted. He dropped out of college, and he believed in creative intuition to help reinforce and guide our thinking. And he took this calligraphy class, which he attributes to the success of the Macintosh PC, precursors to those world-changing products and changing and revolutionizing the way that we live and connect with people. And so Jobs once said that a lot of people in our industry haven't had very diverse experiences, so they don't have enough dots to connect and end up with very linear solutions without broad perspective on the problem. The broader one's understanding of the human experience, the better design we will have, and such is life. The more broad our experience is, when we continue to use this momentum to keep moving forward, we get to embrace our struggle, broaden our perspective, and then intersect the perspectives that help us move forward in a very positive way. And that, to me, is what Racing with Katie is all about, because we were 200 meters from the finish line after 15 and a half hours of racing, and we picked her up walking arm in arm, struggling, unbalanced, hurting, and we walked very slowly. It took us 9 minutes to walk this finisher chute. And we sat her down in that chair. She looked up and said, "That's the farthest I've ever walked in my life." That's the new perspective, the new experience that I get to take with me, that everybody that witnessed that now has a broader perspective, uses that at the intersection for their personal life to keep moving forward, changing out the variables when necessary. So here's my challenge to you. Here's my call to action, okay? On average, Americans watch about at least 5 hours of television every single day, okay? There are 326 million people in the United States. What if we took 10% of the population and 10% of the hours watched of television per day, so 30 minutes, multiplied that together, and used the art of embracing the unbalance, using the force to move us forward, realizing our potential and choosing to get there? Imagine if we took that time every single day, 32.6 million hours every single day, to do something constructive, useful, embracing the unbalance. Imagine the good we could do, the problems we could solve, and how we could change the world. Thank you.